Stephanie White's style of coaching is not for Caitlin Clark.
That there's a bit of a divide between the way that they see the game and the way that they think the Indiana Fever should play.
Possibly try to sabotage the greatest asset the league has ever gotten.
After undermining Caitlin Clark, Stephanie White was recently fired. This is enormous. Following the catastrophic meltdown against the Valkyries on July 10th, in which her strange tactic once again undermined Caitlin Clark, Stephanie White was formally fired. The Fever appeared to be gone. Fans have had enough of Clark being ignored while she was playing to her strengths. This goes beyond a simple dismissal. It's the result of a coach who utterly mishandled the biggest star in the WNBA.
He has taken away Caitlin Clark's greatest asset, which is the creator and instigator of offense.
July 10th, 2025. On July 10th, the Golden State Valkyries humiliated the Indiana Fever at home with a 9,172 thrashing. It was a public breakdown, not just a bad game. In the midst of it all, Caitlin Clark returned to the court, albeit with a very different appearance. She seems to have had her skills taken away. No floor command, no transition assaults, and no pick and roll. Clark was pushed off the ball instead, and she was forced to watch Aari McDonald lead the attack as she sat in the corner like a forgotten role player. Suddenly, the Clark-Boston two-woman game, the Fever's lone effective weapon, disappeared into thin air.
Looks like Stephanie White has spaded Caitlin Clark, for lack of a better way of putting it.
Coach Stephanie White started Aari McDonald next to Caitlin Clark against the Valkyries, which again she explained by saying it helps to take the burden off of Caitlin.
Fans of the Fever were startled, not just indignant. What is this lineup? At small forward is Caitlin Clark. No one believed what they were witnessing. And the internet went crazy as Clark's eagerly awaited comeback ended with just 8 points. It seems that Clark was purposefully neutralized, not because she was awful.
Fans online has been threatening to quit watching the Indiana Fever basketball. Fans is threatening to quit going to the games. And if this was to happen...
Additionally, Stephanie White stole the microphone during the post-game press conference and doused the flames with gasoline. She didn't accept any accountability at all. Rather, she placed the blame on the players. She blasted the players for their lack of effort, disorganized play, and disregard for detail. They lacked competitive fire, she claimed. But she never once gave an explanation for why her rotations were illogical, and there were no explanations for why Clark was being abused or why the game plan collapsed as soon as they got a hint. Not all of this was tone deaf. It seemed purposeful. White pretended to be uninvolved in the mayhem. The fans, however, were not duped. It was seen by all. The whispering changed to shouting while this was on coaching. Stephanie White's actions are undermining Caitlin Clark. Furthermore, this is nothing new. Let's face it. For weeks, Clark and White have been at odds with one another. It dates back to May 24th, when the Liberty suffered a narrow defeat, and Clark is known to have stated, "Holding the ball in my hands is how I perform best. I'm most productive around that time." White refuted her a short while later, complimenting Clark on his cutting and screening skills, but criticizing her ball handling. There is still a philosophical divide. It has only become louder and more ugly, if anything.
Stephanie White under fire by Fever fans. She blasted her team after the squad's loss to the Golden State Valkyries.
Because I felt like there was a lack of competitive fire. With the exception of about 2 5-minute spurts, our attention to detail was poor.
White is adamant that the team looks different when Clark is off the ball. She even likened it to how the Mavericks are better at moving the ball when Lucius Doncic isn't playing. Indeed, like Clark, Luka is a multi-generational talent and the backbone of his group. It's difficult to ignore the underlying meaning when White brings that up. The team performs better when Caitlin doesn't control the ball.
Attention to detail, on discipline. I felt like our energy and our competitive fire was not there, and that's disappointing.
That goes beyond simple strategy. That's a set of beliefs. Additionally, It contradicts what Clark has accomplished at Iowa, in the WNBA's early years, and in the public eye. She doesn't shoot at random. She isn't a phony. She is a once-in-a-lifetime powerhouse, a playmaker, a floor general, and she can dish 12 and drop 30 without flinching. Thus, it felt like the last insult when Stephanie White began Aari McDonald at point guard against the Valkyries. And the outcomes were devastating. The crime was committed. Clark seems disoriented. The coach was the only one who didn't appear to recognize that the chemistry with Boston had vanished.
Defensively, just lots of movement, lots of lateral movement. I thought she looked good at times, and I think that's just building consistency and building her endurance and all of that. So I was pleased.
So, that's an interesting comment there.
It didn't sit well with the fans. Experts are accusing her of neutering Clark's entire game and dubbing her approach a point-forward jumble. The main query, though, is why Clark is being employed as a role player. Why is there no longer any offensive set that was effective in the Clark-Boston pick and roll?
Stephanie White said immediately afterwards in regards to basically what went wrong and why, the Fever fell so flat.
Why?
The Carolyn Peck link comes next. Peck, White's mentor, stated on ESPN a few days ago that the Fever would be better off without Clark. That is a warning sign, not just a hot take. White trailed Peck to Vanderbilt, where she escorted all of the best players to the transfer window. Everything is coming full circle. The same trend of mishandling top talent and losing locker rooms.
We've seen these glimpses where I do believe the Fever at their best can still be what I've talked about and what I've discussed. But
one thing is obvious, regardless of whether you think there was a covert agenda or just plain incompetence. There had to be something, and it did at last. Stephanie White is not present. Since this was more than just one poor game, the Indiana Fever front staff took the only action possible. This was a team that was in decline with the most valuable player the league has seen in decades, a habit of failure, and a total mismatch between coach and star.
The one thing that was in existence that actually worked, that felt like a little bit of something offensive that worked, gone.
Let's examine the information. Prior to the Vakis loss on July 10th, the Fever were 514, which dropped them to 15 following a humiliating 19-point loss against an expansion squad that didn't even exist the previous season. That was the eagerly awaited return of Clark. Additionally, she was forced into a cumbersome off-ball role next to Aari McDonald, who wasn't even in the WNBA 3 weeks prior, rather than returning to a rhythm and system that played to her abilities. That's malpractice, not just bad coaching.
The fandom is in pure crash-out mode. Somebody exposed something out there.
Additionally, Stephanie White's past performance doesn't exactly bolster confidence. She led Vanderbilt to ruin, with the program finishing 46-83 overall and several standout players leaving, including All-SEC forward Autumn Newby, leading scorer Mariella Fasula, and freshman sensation Rebecca Dolman.
Why?
Due to the players' lack of empowerment. Because White's inability to oversee exceptional skills led to its misuse.
Does Stephanie White have an agenda? Her coaching style is influenced by her NC2A championship coach, Carolyn Peck.
And now, she's doing it once more in the WNBA. The top overall choice, Caitlin Clark, leads all rookies in assists and scoring. The best-selling jersey in the league. Stephanie White neutered her, which is the sole reason the Fever are selling out arenas all over the country. With Aaliyah Boston, she took away her pick and roll. She was forced to stand in the corner, eliminated the element that gives her her generational identity. She has the ability to create with the ball in her hands. It's more than just poor strategy. That is sabotage. The result was the same whether it was deliberate or simply stubborn. The Fever was worsening, but better. Additionally, the league's expression appeared dejected. At last, the front desk took over. Because you don't wait. You cut the team when your coach is unable to manage the future of your team, which is the most precious asset in your league. And they did. Even if she isn't shouting, yelling, or tossing chairs on Instagram Live, Caitlin Clark is expressing a lot. Additionally, if you've been listening, it sounds a lot like a call for assistance.
There is a plot to destroy Caitlin Clark, and Stephanie White and the Indiana Fever might be in on it.
She has now stated it several times in various tones and in various ways, but she always returns to the same statement. I'm at my best with the ball in my hands at that moment.
Stephanie White is an idiot, should be fired. This woman played Ari McDonald 18 minutes in the first half. 3 weeks ago, Ari McDonald wasn't on a WNBA roster.
This system isn't working for Caitlin Clark. She is being instructed to play bumper cars while her Ferrari is stored in a garage. In terms of assists and points, the lady led all collegiate basketball players. She's currently out here observing Ari McDonald, who lost his job a month ago, lead the offensive as if it were her own.
Clark, a Leah Boston deadly connection, pick and roll, two-man game connection that has worked.
Additionally, Clark did not erupt or act diva when asked post-game following the Valkyrie tragedy where the Fever was steamrolled by an expansion team. Instead, she expressed serious disappointment by saying the team started good, had enthusiasm early afterward. They deflated after the run. Let's reconsider that. We lost our enthusiasm. It's not typical locker room conversation. We lost our souls out there, to put it nicely. She publicly accepted blame, acknowledged that the defense was careless, and claimed that the team had not complied with the scouting report. Her tone and body language made it clear that nobody played well today. There was a problem. We're now beginning to understand what's actually happening underneath the surface. Clark and head coach Stephanie White are engaged in a developing philosophical disagreement. Coach Stephanie White came up with more concepts. She mentioned Luka Doncic, too. Luka does a better job of explaining the Mavs movement ball when he isn't on the court. And that wasn't just a thought. That provided insight into her perception of Caitlin Clark. Consider it. The exceptional shooter with an infinite range, Steph Curry, is often compared to Clark. But in reality, she's more of a hybrid of LeBron-Luka, a heliocentric offensive weapon whose playmaking and gravity bend the defense. She is a system, not a component. It is therefore not only perplexing but also offensive when White begins to construct a plan that treats Clark as a 3 and D wing.
Caitlin Clark has a horrible game in her return. The whole team is horrible.
This team's identity is Caitlin Clark. Additionally, Stephanie White seems to be attempting to transform that identity into something else. It's not a balance thing. Anything that puts the team first, and in which Clark becomes part of the system rather than the system itself. However, because fans preferred to watch the Fever share the ball 12 passes deep like the 2014 Spurs, the WNBA didn't take off the season. They came to see Clark work his magic. And people become aware when the magic stops. They begin to pose challenging queries. And it's becoming more difficult to find the answers at the moment.
I think we need to do a better job of getting me the ball in transition, whether somebody's there or not. I think there's a fine balance of playing me off the ball and also getting the ball in my hands. That's when I'm the best in transition. Everybody knows that. I'm very open about that.
There is no denying that something has to give, whether you agree with it or not. And it simply did. Stephanie White is not present. Dismissed. Completed. There was nothing the Fever could do. The conflict had turned into a diversion. The losses are too unsightly, and the fan base is too incensed. The franchise is Clark now, which is more important. She is more than a mere athlete. She is the WNBA's future. Additionally, the coach must go if they are unable to unlock your potential.
You have to consider the possibility that the Indiana Fever are in on the plot to destroy Caitlin Clark.
What does this mean for the Indiana Fever? The organization faces both a huge opportunity and a crossroads without Stephanie White in the lineup. This goes beyond simply looking for a new coach. Rebuilding the team's entire identity around Caitlin Clark is the goal. No more arguments about philosophy. No more trying to compel her to use a system that was never appropriate. Someone who is aware of star power must be the next hire. Someone who understands how to let Clark prepare food. Already, names like Bill Lemire and Mark Jackson are being proposed. Former NBA players with a winning mentality and no agenda.
I thought we started really well. I thought we were competitive. I thought we played with energy in the first 5 minutes. And then, when they kind of went on their first run, kind of deflated us a little bit, which I'm not really sure why, but the offense, I think, you know, for us, like, it starts on defense.
And to be honest, this might open the door to everything. Clark has a very real chance of getting 252 assists. The Boston Clark is prepared to be let go once more. Most significantly, this young Fever group has the potential to become deadly with the correct leadership. The team with the highest viewership in the WNBA just cleared the runway. It's time to take off. This goes beyond a simple dismissal. It serves as a warning, a watershed, and a signal to all league officials, coaches, and executives. Either adapt to the Caitlin Clark era or risk falling behind. For more WNBA Season 2025 updates, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Stephanie White was recently let go.